Hi everyone, my name is Søren, and I head up digital health in Novo Nordisk. I'm joining you from Denmark in Europe, and the most important thing that smart pen technology will contribute is that it will radically transform the way we deliver care in diabetes. And I look forward to discussing all of this with you.
Hi, my name is Chalice Imes, and I'm coming to you from just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the U.S. commercial leader for Lilly's Connected Care and Insulins business. And I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about the future of connected pens because of what they enable people with diabetes to do and the opportunities that they create. These tools truly demonstrate how we can leverage technology to simplify diabetes management and ultimately drive behavior changes, leading to improved outcomes.
Hi, my name's Sean Saint. I'm coming to you from Medtronic San Diego, which means the former Companion Medical. The most important thing to know about smart insulin pens is that patients and their healthcare providers now have access to technology that's previously been reserved for only people who are willing or able to use an insulin pump. And that has the ability to bring better outcomes to 93% of people who use insulin in this country. Thank you.
Okay, so we're excited now to talk about the potential of new connected pen technology. Not brand new, but really kind of reaching its peak now. And in fact, there's a lot of talk about the fact that we've only scratched the surface of the potential of these new tools. So we have with us today Chalice Imes with Eli Lilly, Sean Saint of Companion Medical and now with Medtronic, and Soren Ostergaard with Novo Nordisk. So they are all respectively leaders in connected pen technology in their organizations, and we're going to start by asking them to say a little bit about what they're excited about creating connected pen technologies from their respective companies. So let's see, Soren, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm extremely excited about this technology because I think we are right now. So, like today, we're kind of drawing a line in the sand. So that when we look back in this 10 years from now, we're going to say that like the standard of care changed, right? When we got access to reliable, credible data on how people use medication and how we could correlate that with other data sets, that is going to be a massive game changer, and it will drive insights that we don't even know what will be yet. I'm extremely excited, and I think to your point, we're scratching the surface. We are just getting started, and this will transform diabetes.
So, Chalice?
Sure,
Bye.
thanks. So my name is Chalice Imes. I'm the commercial leader for our Connected Care and Insulins business unit for the US at Eli Lilly. And thank you, Amy, for the invite. I am thrilled to be here. Our business at Lilly has been very much rooted in exploring different ways that we can improve the lives of people with diabetes. And so that because of that, we are constantly exploring different ways that we can bring solutions to market and innovate around that to just sort of help, I guess, take the burden of like the mental math of trying to figure out diabetes off their plates. And so I agree with you, Soren, like this is exciting to be committed to bringing these connected pens to market. And I think if you start to think through the not just the devices themselves, but the opportunity, the data that they generate and the analytics behind the data, and you pair that with some of the applications that we're all kind of talking about, what it does is it sort of springboards us into providing more of a personalized guidance approach that I think is really where some of the innovation happens. We all know diabetes is not a one size fits all. And so to treat it like that, I think is unfair for those individuals. But if we can leverage technology to figure out ways that we can truly tailor it to individuals' needs, that's when you start to really see how we can start to improve outcomes. So I'm excited about the pen platforms and technology we're bringing to market.
Okay, and now I'm going to punt it to Sean, and I have to say he's kind of the godfather of this technology. I remember meeting him a number of years ago, and he was running around with this prototype in his jacket and trying, he has been evangelizing connected pen technology. So we're really excited to see him now working with Medtronic and bringing this to market.
Thanks for that, Amy. And I'll just agree with both Soren and Chalice and say that we heard about data, we heard about personalized insights, and I'll add hopefully the third leg of that stool, which is for so many people, because it's still true that the lion's share of people who use insulin are taking it from a pen, And that's obviously the group of people that we're trying to impact with these technologies. And I think there's so far we can go from where we are today. I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's a tipping point today. I also think that we're still just barely scratching the surface. There's ultimately no real reason people shouldn't be using technologies like this if we keep them simple, if we keep them easy to use, if we keep them affordable, which so far I think the industry is doing a real good job of. So yeah, we're very excited here.
All right, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what the pens enable. So again, this takes it from being the standalone kind of dumb product to more than just a pen. It's an entire system, right? So there is the tracking component, there's the recommendations portion. So Shalas, you mentioned personalizing this for individuals. Maybe you could all say a word about how we are imagining that happening. And also, are we segmenting for specific types of users?
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about the platform that Lilly's going to be bringing to market. We're calling it our Tempo Pen platform, and it's truly the first integrated offering that we'll be able to see. And so what I mean by that is it takes the insulin device, and we'll have a connected connected cap that will be connected to the pen, and that will enable the data to be collected from the insulin pen. Those then, in combination with an application that we're in the middle of partnering with WellDoc to bring to market, that allows you to pull that personalized data, both from the insulin that they're taking and the times they're taking it and how much, along with the application that will also have some personalized data. So it's gathered on those, but where the magic happens is the analytics behind it, right? So you're putting that together to truly personalize it for individuals' needs in their everyday, how they're managing through their diabetes. I think it's important for us to recognize that every person who has diabetes is working through that mental math. There's a whole lot of things outside of just taking insulin that goes along with this and figuring out how to manage it. So if you're kind of identify people as individuals and then be able to tailor whether it's non-prescription type of approach or a prescription type of approach, you're really meeting their needs versus just kind of a blanket approach. So I think that's kind of what gets us excited about that. You asked me a lot about segmentation, who it's for. I think this is, again, Sean made the comment on how many patients are currently taking insulin pens right now. That's kind of majority of insulin users take it through pens. Ideally, anyone who's currently on a pen, you would have access to a connected offering at some point. So we're committed to making sure that we're partnering with, whether it's our payers or our insurance companies, to ensure that individuals have access. I think there's still there's going to be a gap for a while, but I think we're committed to trying to narrow that.
Okay. And Soren, does your package look different? How are you guys thinking about this as a system?
Yeah, I think so on the component, on the device component thing, I think we're experimenting both with kind of an integrated approach. So we have a product that's launched currently in a couple of European markets, a durable device that works with kind of cartridges or pen fills, where the electronics is kind of it's an all-in-one device that has that stores the data, and then we use a kind of NFC technology to transfer it to the phone, similar to how your credit card kind of works, or your Apple Pay or Google Pay works when you pay in the store. And then we also have kind of an accessory device. So for people that are using kind of these disposable pens, there's an environmental angle that is near and dear to us, that and until we reach critical mass of people using this kind of electronic component and getting the benefit, then we feel that kind of this accessory device to these pens is the right approach. I mean, the whole idea is the data component, right? And I think our approach is that what we want to put the data in front of as many people living with diabetes and their physicians, right? So because we believe kind of that the first use case of this will be the improved, more productive conversation between a physician and patient, right? So if that conversation takes point of departure in reality, in what actually happened, instead of what we all kind of project happening, right? So we all project a better version of ourselves. I mean, my own my own experiences. I have lower back pain, and I went to a kind of a physiotherapist to try and say, okay, could they actually do something about this? And I'm hoping I would get a nice massage and then be beyond with my life. But that didn't happen. I had to do these exercises where I had to get up and then do kind of these stretch exercises like 5 times a day. And the reality, when I came back 3 weeks later and my physiotherapist asked me, so did you actually do the exercises? I was like, yeah, maybe 80% of the time, when in reality, it was 20% of the time and only the first week, right? And then I stopped altogether. So the problem is not that I didn't do the exercises. The problem is I ended up having the wrong conversation with my physiotherapist, which ended, I mean, he may have actually thought that, it was a little bit lower than the 80% given that I was still in pain, but maybe he was like estimating 50% or something, and it would still be wrong, right? We ended up having the wrong conversation. I still have lower back pain. So I'm not over it, right? And that's a shame, right? So if we have access to credible, reliable data on these things, then we can make better decisions. And I think we've published a couple of studies on a pilot we did in Sweden a couple of years ago that were really encouraging, and I'm extremely happy to see that. I think a number of other players are also kind of soon to release or have released data that kind of goes in this direction. We can meaningfully improve time and range when we do this. Obviously, this is the beginning. So once we've established this data stream kind of in the diabetes sphere, we can do so much more, right? And then all the fancy AI stuff and the machine learning algorithms and all these other things that will be built on top, they will come. But we still have to get over the first hump, and I think that the killer app, if so to say, right, the killer app is more meaningful conversations, and therefore, I mean, we also have an open approach to partnership. So we're partnering with a lot of companies to try and integrate the data, so you both see you could say the input, which is the medicine, and you also see the output, which is typically kind of time and range or its glucose values for sure.
Okay, let me stop you there. I'm going to change it up a little bit before I throw it to you, Sean. So, people may make the argument, like, if you want to have those better conversations, you want to have more precise insulin data, why not move to a pump? So talk to me about, you've been developing the InPen for years. You guys already have this functioning, pen that connects with an app. What are people getting out of it, and how do you convince people and convince doctors that this is a good choice for their patients?
Well, it's a great question, Amy. And, it's the perspective's not wrong, right? I mean, pumps are fantastic technology. They're getting better and better, and they're really, really good today. But the simple fact is that not everybody is using them. And that was actually the fundamental question that I thought of years ago. And I'm by no means the inventor of the smart insulin pen, but from Companion's perspective, it was like, geez, we're leaving a huge percentage of people out in the cold without access to better technologies. We know how to bring them better technologies, but we've basically said it's your job to come to us with pumps rather than come to them with something that they're willing to use. So that's really all that's about. And I think it's a fairly straightforward discussion with a healthcare provider from our perspective to simply say, no, you're right. If somebody wants to use a pump, please. We're not trying to tell you that this is a better solution than pumps. We're simply saying, if you don't want that, which is most people, then fantastic. Let me get you on a better solution where everything Soren said and everything Chalice said becomes true. Now you can have that detailed conversation about what the user is actually doing. Now the user can actually know what they should be doing. And yeah, now it can grow with them over time. And that's what I found so interesting about some things that were said here. We've always started with the phrase, take the right amount of insulin at the right time. It starts with take, right? And Soren, that's what you were talking about with doing your exercises, right? Word number one, take. The 3 companies here, we're all doing this a little bit differently to start with, and I think that's great. We're all going to a more similar place in the future, but we're going to get there differently. And I think that's fantastic because it's each way we choose to do it is going to be right for a little bit different group of people. And we don't know that yet. But I think that's going to be really exciting to see the world evolve over the next period of time.
I agree. One comment on Sean too. I couldn't agree more. And I think when you hear the different approaches that companies, while they're not wildly different, I think the end goal for all of us is very similar in improving patient outcomes. And so we probably, in order to do that, again, like it's not a one size fits all, we probably need to come at it from a number of different angles, offer options, offer choice? How do we enable, sort of your point, better conversations between people with diabetes and their healthcare provider so that they can tailor and take an approach or a connected solution that's right for them. And so I think that's really important too, as we're thinking through this. And while connected pens are it feels like they're a huge step in the right direction, which they are. I think we all have there's a long ways to go, but yet we're all committed to continuing to explore and innovate around solutions there.
So yeah, let's talk about outcomes actually. So, I think Sean mentioned at some point that 93% of insulin users are already on pens. So who is at goal now, and how, what data do we have to show that time and range is actually improving being on a connected pen? Or what quality of life data do we have?
Yeah. So I can speak to that generally, and I'm not exactly sure the stat there, but I think it's 93% not on pumps, so pens, syringes, but really opportunity for this technology. Look, it's early. I think it's early for all three of our companies. There's limited data out there that's been published on actual outcomes with smart pens. We are absolutely working down that path right now in order to publish that. But what I think we can say for sure is we can talk about the problems we're trying to fix, right? We know that people are missing doses a huge percentage of the time. We know that A1C goes up when you miss doses, and that's everybody. We know that doses are usually taken with some insulin on board, right? That's stacking. We know that people have a hard time with math calculating their insulin doses. We know all these things, and these are the things that smart pens generally are designed to impact. So while I can't quote any outcomes right now, I think we can say that if we do it right, if we build these systems in a way that people are willing to use because they're easy, the outcomes will follow.
And to add to that too, I think, you look at, for type 2 patients, those that are currently taking insulins, at least half of them, if not more, are currently not reaching goal. So it's not always like, yes, we need to continue to innovate around insulins to make sure those are better, but there's a whole lot of other things that go along with that, and things that Sean just spoke to, the mental burden. People need to live lives. And so how do you wrap some support around those so to enable them to continue to do that? And we continue, especially at Lilly, we continue to try to understand that journey that they go through, and how do you, what are the differences, and how can you provide solutions at different points within that journey? So I'm with you, Sean. We don't have a ton of data yet either, but the things like missing doses or skipping doses or rationing doses, even we published some data even on the fear of hypoglycemia and how that actually impacts how much insulin you take. So I think moving forward, you're going to see us start to drive, you'll start to see more of those metrics, or those quality of life metrics, and how we're moving the needle on those. But I think it's still yet to come. Although I think we'd all agree that we're headed in the right direction, and we're committed to the right things. It's really around the outcomes, not just some of the more traditional metrics. Time and range being a very important one. We're not there yet, I think, as far as a collective adoption of time and range. However, that's probably a much better metric for us to start to use in order to enable those better conversations, because it's more representative of what's happening versus just an A1C. But it's going to take us time to move in that direction.
Well, that leads us into kind of stakeholders and how we're getting people on board.
But if I could just say one thing, right? So that's a couple of numbers, right? So we've studied this. I mean, it's in Sweden, and it's a special population in some type 1s in Sweden, essentially, right? Over a period of 2.5 years, right? Where we followed them when they were using connected devices, and they were using a CGM typically, and then we kind of, we were just watching what they were doing. We weren't intervening, but just kind of following up on what was going on. So, I mean, I think the problem is that we're all collectively trying to solve. That's real, right? So even in a type 1 population, what we saw was that time in range was about, I think it was 9 hours a day, 9 hours on average, 24 out of 24 hours a day every year. I mean, for the period, right, for 2.5 years. I mean, and that's just appalling, right? So what we're all trying to solve for, that problem is very real, right? Then some of the study, or some of the results that we saw, and this was in kind of a small population, and can it be extrapolated? Let's see about that, right? But what we saw like amazing improvements in time and range, like 2 hours per day on average. We saw we saw that the healthcare system actually saved money for every person that they put on a connected device, right? So we see these things that, you know, society want more effective healthcare, more cost-effective healthcare. They can get this with this technology. We're probably going to see improved outcomes, and we're going to see that physicians, like in an ever-increasing shorter amount of time they have with their patients, they are spending more of that time on improving therapy rather than diagnosing why is this person not realizing the full benefits. You know, when I look at the wonderful data that, you know, that Lilly or Novo Nordisk has, you know, with us, that we've documented can be achieved with our medicines, why am I not seeing this fully in this patient? And you know, and starting to kind of work on, you know, on optimizing that rather than diagnosing what's wrong, so they spend their time more effectively. I think we need more data, right? And we really need, this is the last kind of stronghold that's holding back adoption, because the technology seems to be there. Companion Medical has a wonderful product. I think ours is good, and I'm sure Lilly's is great. So what's holding back adoption is really kind of the, you know, the evidence, right? And that I really look forward to seeing come out in the coming period.
If I can build on that, Soren, I think you're right on, and I love the fact that you guys did that study and the results were great. And what's interesting about it is that smart pens can and do a lot of things, right? So we have that, and that, you know, that bit is improving time and range. And then we know that dose calculators improve time or improve A1C, I should say. There's studies on that, and you can bring those. And there's all these things that smart pens can do. Each bit needs to be taken not completely individually, but they're additive, right? And that's what I can't wait for. I can't wait till we bring all the different technologies that all of us are talking about into a product, into a system, and see what the whole thing does. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. If I can dig into that a little bit, Soren, you mentioned that the healthcare system is saving money. So was that on sort of reduced hypoglycemic events, ER visits? Where is that being quantified, this cost savings?
Yeah, I think we published a study on this, and I mean, there's multiple contributing factors, but essentially because I think actually it's Medtronic has done a couple of studies where they link time in range to A1C decreases, and there's a bunch of other companies that have done the same. So when you kind of plot that into a model of what happens with long-term outcomes and savings on hospitalizations and complications related to diabetes, you know, those are being brought down significantly if a person, for example, increases their average time in range from 9 hours a day to 11 hours a day, and especially if, you know, if that to a large extent is coming from a reduction of time above range rather than time. So essentially what we saw was that time in range was improved, and it was less time spent in hypoglycemia, and it was also less time spent in hypoglycemia, right? So you're just kind of narrowing the range that people are in, and therefore, you know, you can kind of contemplate that the A1C differences would be there, and even if in the lack of a really large A1C decrease as a result of that, because you're not in hypos, which, you know, is the bad ones, though, the expensive ones, right? And then you're very significantly decreasing time above range, then you'd see less complications as a result of that. So I think that's essentially where it's coming from.
Yeah, and that I think brings me to the whole obviously access.
And sorry, sorry to just because so one of the consequences is also that to address this, people they tend to use a higher amount of insulin, right? To address the kind of chronic underdosing that typically is happening, right? And even taking kind of the increased cost of the smart devices and the increased consumption into account, you know, they're still saving cost, right? It's, I think, over a lifetime, it's like 12,000 euros or something that I believe we calculated, and it's like 5,000 or 6,000 euros in the first 3 years. So it's quite significant.
Yeah, so obviously that data is critical to coverage, right? And coverage is critical to access. So that's where I was going with that. I just wanted to ask if you can all comment on sort of where are we right now with coverage of smart pens, and, you know, how soon are we getting to making it easier for patients to get a hold of these?
Yeah, I can speak Lilly side, I think our pen's not out in market yet, but as soon as it is, and we're committed to trying to continue to partner with and I'll speak to the U.S. specifically, but partnering with our payer colleagues or the insurance companies to ensure we are committed to trying to get access of our connected pens to as many patients as possible. I think it'll be important. That will evolve over time as we start to get more utility. But I think it's important that we try to strive to get access to these connected pens and to as many people with diabetes as possible.
And really quickly, can you tell us your time frame for our launch?
We're going to be submitting some things this year, and so hopefully we'll get them out as soon as we get approval, and so sooner the better.
Okay. Sean, you want to say a few words about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's on us, it's on everybody on this call here to ensure that access to these things is great. In the long run, we're going to need data. We're going to need the individual conversations with the PBMs, the plans, et cetera. But where we are today, at least with InPen, is that coverage looks really, really good. Most patients pay no more than $35. Part of that is our coverage. Part of that is our copay assistance plans, et cetera. But it's work we've done in the background to ensure that access for almost everybody is really good. So access is just not a massive stumbling block today for our product. We're going to talk a little bit today about the things that I think need to change. Access needs to change, although I think, again, where it is good, just the way we get there needs to change. Again, copay assistance plans aren't a long-term solution.
What's a typical out-of-pocket compared to starting on a pump, for example?
What's that?
What's a typical out-of-pocket cost for a patient compared to starting on a pump?
Yeah, typical out-of-pocket patients under $35.
Really great.
For our product. And then, of course, you're getting cartridges rather than pens. The coverage on those does change, but traditionally, the copay on that's about the same. So for us, it's about a $35 per year additional cost to be on a smart pen. So highly affordable for most people.
Okay.
And I think, to Sean's point, it's going to take as the utility of these pens grows through healthcare providers and just through demand of people with diabetes. I think you'll start to see access grow. It's also important to recognize, though, that I think all three of us would say diabetes can be expensive to manage. And so I think all of us are very much committed to trying to figure out how people who are on insulin have access to it, whether it's through a connected offering or not. And so Sean talked about $35. I know at Lilly, we are committed to anybody who has affordability challenges can call our Lilly Diabetes Solution Center and can get our insulin for $35 or less. So I think that's important to know. It's going to take us a while. So while we're committed to getting access to them, we need to ensure that those who need insulin have access to it.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's a great segue into sort of integration. So obviously, we're talking about a lot today about CGM becoming more standard of care. So if anyone's going to now say, well, I also want to use this no longer just this dumb injection device, but one that's connected, what about CGM integration and integration with other, data platforms, et cetera?
I'll start. I'll
Okay.
say that CGM's a no-brainer here, right? I mean, there's at least 3 legs of the diabetes stool, right? You got insulin, that's what we're talking about today. You've got glucose, that's CGM, can be BGM as well, of course. And you've got carbohydrates. You bring those 3 things together, now you're starting to get a full picture of what's going on. There's other data streams we'd like to talk about. As everybody knows, our system is integrated with Dexcom. It's real-time integrated with the Guardian Connect system from Medtronic. We're very excited about that. But I think in the future, there are other things we can connect. And there are other things, I think to Soren's point, that having that insulin data enables, things that some of which have been thought about that we may be developing, some of which maybe haven't even been thought about yet, that we've never been able to do until we had this data. So it's a new world. And, there are some partnerships that are happening. And then there's some partnerships that, again, probably haven't even been conceived of yet that I think will probably change the world in some way.
I couldn't agree more. I think CGM is essential to this. With Lilly, we partner with Dexcom as well. We're looking to have, for the future to continue to have that CGM help, as part of the glucose reading, that third part of the stool there. And I think that, the CGM companies continue to innovate around not just the device, but they're committed to getting access to patients or people with diabetes to make sure that it's more accessible. So it's getting more convenient, it's getting more accessible, it's accurate. I completely agree that we're committed to including the CGM data as part of our integrated platform, both for open loop and then as we start to look at explore bringing a closed loop system to market as well.
Yeah, not surprisingly, completely agree. Right. So I think we've partnered up with every CGM manufacturer we could find. Right. So Dexcom, Abbott, Medtronic, and Roche, and others. So I think we want to make sure that it's accessible on the platforms that people are using today, right? And whether they're using a BGM or whether they're using CGM, they should have access to data on their medication behavior as the kind of single biggest kind of input to why they're seeing the outcomes that they're seeing, or why they're seeing the kind of the glucose curves that they're seeing. But I think we are committed to also integrating this technology into all the things that I think Sean was also saying that we can't even fathom, or that in the corporate bureaucracy of big companies that you just cannot get through because either the niche is too small initially, so it kind of doesn't. It's hard to like get through kind of our internal governance, right? So we've set up developer.novonordisk.com where smaller companies with a little bit of legal stuff can get access to this technology and build it into their solution. So what we're seeing in Europe right now is some of these virtual coaching or semi-virtual or asynchronous coaching solutions that they're building in the technology so that their coaches can help people stay on course and help them if they're seeing challenges and them not picking up their prescription, or they're not taking their prescription as prescribed and stuff like that. So we're also building it into these what we call integrated diabetes management solutions like Gluco. We've had a long partnership with Gluco, with My Sugar, and a bunch of other solutions out there. So I think we'll see more of this from all players, that we, to an increasing degree, have to work together on some things, even though we compete on other things. Because in the end, patients should have the best kind of picture of their solution as possible. And that, I envision a future where a person might be on a Lilly insulin and a Novo Nordisk insulin at the same time, and we need to make sure that they can get a picture of their situation fully. And it's going to take some time, unfortunately. That's just how it is. But that's an end game, or that's an end state where people will benefit the most.
If I can quickly say, Soren said something super important right there. The question originally was about CGM, and we're all fans of CGM here. But I'm sure I'm probably talking for all of us when I say that. But BGM, which you brought up, Soren, BGM enables so much of what we can do with smart pens. Not everything, but a lot. And again, most people are still using BGM. So I want to make sure that as an industry, we don't sort of commit the same error that we did with pumps, which was like, be it pumps or forget you. No, if you want to use BGM, absolutely, we'll support that. And, we'll make all the solutions that we can that support that therapy. It's your choice. And again, I'm sure everybody would agree with that.
So I don't know if this is a naive question, but are there, Bluetooth-enabled BGM meters right now that can connect with the connected pens?
Yes.
There are.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
There are. They're not all enabled, but they're definitely, and I think they're moving that direction, which is good. I think, as we talk through it too, choice or optionality is really important. Sometimes, we're trying to be very conscious too of ensuring that you don't overwhelm or infuse complexity into the situation because there's so many choices. So how do you simplify the offering to people with diabetes so it works within their lifestyle, within their workflow? Same thing for healthcare providers. We have to make these offerings, these integrated offerings, so simple, and it has to fit into their workflow. We recognize healthcare providers are already so strapped for time, whether it's all of the bureaucracy stuff that they have to do on the just to be a professional, but also they're strapped for time to engage with their with patients. And so how do you bring solutions that actually enable those better conversations or fit into their workflow versus forcing them to adjust what they're doing to fit into ours? That's going to be part of the challenge is this as well. to figure out how we make that simple.
Awesome. Well, I think you'll probably all join me in in agreeing that this is kind of overdue in a way. I mean, these, just a standalone dumb device that injects insulin that doesn't help people track and understand their own behavior. I feel like those legacy tools will be disappearing, and soon it will just be considered. And of course, an insulin pen has these capabilities, right? And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, seems like there's a huge potential for our market here, because there are so many people who don't want to or might like to actually get off a pump for a while. So I think it's very exciting. Is there anything else about smart pen technology that we haven't covered that you would like to share today? To wrap up, we've done it all. We talked about interoperability, we talked about coverage, talked about bringing physicians on board, and Sean, I see you have something.
Well, I do have some thoughts. I think the biggest thought, and I'm sure everybody would agree with me, is just the basic point that I brought up at first, which is that these things are for everybody, right? And not pump users, but if you're using pen technologies, then they're for you. And we haven't yet really internalized who the target patient for a smart pen is. But at the end of the day, and today that may be a person that we can describe, but as we move forward, as all three of us and others move forward, that group is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and ultimately it should be everybody. So we're not talking a lot about the details of all of our product pipelines today, and I'm sure we all have similar thoughts, and we probably have some different thoughts, but I think they're all trying to do the same thing, which is bring additional technologies. In many cases, it didn't exist before, even with pumps sometimes, to a much larger group of people. So that's, I think, what we're most excited about. You mentioned the partnership with Medtronic. What I love about that is that in our particular case, of course, we're trying to think about the end-to-end customer. If you want to use pens, if you want to use pumps, if you want to whatever, we got it. And hopefully make all those things seamlessly integrate together. But it's just all about patient choice at the end of the day, which I think all of us would certainly believe. Not to speak for you guys, sorry.
Sure. I'll add, one additional thing too, and I agree with you, Sean, but I do think the connected pens, while as exciting as they are, and there's the technology that is associated with them, we're just scratching the surface on this. The data behind it is what we can gather, but more importantly, the insights that are derived from the data. So what do we want to do with those? What actions can we take from those insights that truly enable our ability, whether it's through people with diabetes or through healthcare providers or those conversations, to drive to better outcomes? And so I look at our connected pens as a tool or like a first step in heading in, like we can really start to make a difference there. You start to add, as we innovate through technology, you're going to have more tools in your bag to be able to drive that, to get us to a better outcomes. But it's really understanding the insights, and it's the personal solution, it's the individuality that's really going to help make a difference. Not a one size fits all for everyone, but how do we then leverage technology and the data that we're collecting from individuals to turn around and tailor offerings that are meaningful for them. So that's what gets me super excited about this.
Awesome. All right,
so I have two things, right? So I think one is the case for these kind of technologies. It's obvious almost to everyone immediately when they hear about it, and they're like, why don't we have this right now, right? But as I'm sure Sean would be able to tell us, right? So it's really difficult to make something that is accurate, right? That because if you log that people have taken 10 units or 30 units or whatever, then that better be right? And that better be right for the duration of your device. So if that works for a year, it should be right for a year, no matter. And people use these things, like Sean was carrying them around as his in his pocket, and people have them in their bags, and they're carrying them around, and they have to be accurate for the duration. I think that this is super important, and it's why it's taking a little bit longer to get this out, because patient safety is number one. You need to be accurate, especially if this is being used to guide people, right, to have these productive conversations. So that's the one thing. And then I think we shouldn't be misled to think that everyone will jump on technology and just love it and get on and be in love with the data, right? So there will still be a majority of people that will want this data, but only when they want it, right? So only like once every 3 months or so. And I think it's extremely important that the data being collected is passively collected to the furthest extent possible, so that you don't have to be like a tech geeky like we probably are to get the benefit, right? So I would like, that when I go to my physician, every third month, or not me, probably my parents, right? When they go, if they just bring their pen with them, right, then they, it will have stored my behavior in relation to taking or not taking my medicine, and then correlating that with any relevant data set, like CGM or BGM, whatever, and then I will get the necessary help to improve, right? And so the data really, there shouldn't be an effort to do that, and it needs to be accurate. I think that's kind of, we didn't touch too much on it, but I think it's super important in order for this to kind of reach wide adoption. So I think that's top of mind for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing up those important points, for sure. And I want to thank all of you for our conversation today. We're going to wrap it up here, and we're going to take some audience questions now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.